I think we should talk about Justin Tucker and the allegations that came out yesterday that are eerily similar to Deshaun Watson's allegations from his time in Houston. I know this is not necessarily related to the Browns, but it's still AFC North news. It's a team that's won the division back to back years. And I do think there could be some major ramifications that come out of this. And I want to break it down on today's episode. So if you are living under a rock and you don't know what happened, basically just Justin Tucker kind of pulled a Deshaun Watson, allegedly. And that word allegedly is important. Justin Tucker put out a very long statement. I'm not going to read it to you, but he unequivocally denies and categorically all these allegations against him. And I personally am someone who is under the belief of innocent until proven guilty. But the evidence is a strong word, but the smoke is not good for Tucker. I mean, we've got people tweeting out stuff from 2021 saying Justin Tucker's canceled, but it's not my place to provide the reason. Let's just say he's been told by many massage places to never come back. 4 years ago, young MC was Adam Schefter for this storyline. All right. How about this also from 2021? Adam. These are just no-name people, by the way. These are just like 150 followers on Twitter guys. Justin Tucker must not have received his happy ending that he forced the masseuse to give him this week, probably because he's banned from every spot in Baltimore. So, yes, people can come out and make allegations against athletes, and that's not uncommon, and sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not true. There are lots of examples of both cases. But when I got people who have really nothing to gain from this in my eyes, tweeting out stuff from January of 2021, fun fact, Justin Tucker ejaculates prematurely and is banned from multiple salons in Baltimore. When all these tweets start coming out from 4 years ago that are bringing, up to the surface, it's tough to ignore them. It's not looking good for Justin Tucker. There's a lot of smoke out there, and a lot of insiders have this belief of, yeah, these are likely true. Likely allegations. I'm not going to come up here and proclaim that I know what happened and this is fact and I'm going to run with it because I do believe we should play out the innocent until proven guilty. But there are lots of instances where it becomes a little bit of a formality to do that. And we are encroaching on this being a formality because it's looking really bleak for Tucker at the moment. Now, before we get any further in today's in today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to take down the Ravens rundown in subscribers for the month of January. They've got a slight lead on us over the last few weeks, so if you have not scrolled down and clicked the subscribe button, I invite you to go ahead and do so today. Now, I did read the article that the Baltimore, forgetting the publication, put out regarding Tucker that broke the news, and this part is the part that's just making its rounds, which is one of the therapists, Jay, recalled that Tucker arrived at his appointment in Ravens gear from head to toe. He made it a point to tell me, I'm a kicker, I play for the Ravens. One, this is the first time a kicker has ever used that as, this is a cool card I'm going to play. Two, talk about major insecurity. You've got to wear your Ravens gear like it's Halloween just to feel like, yep, this is what I need to wear to get what I want. Huge insecurities from Justin Tucker. Now, here's when I chime in with, this is a little bit uncomfortable for Browns fans because on one hand, let's just be honest, everyone's having fun on the internet with this. There's a million jokes being made, and a lot of them are very funny. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. My rule when it comes to topics like this, you can't make jokes and also be very mad. If you're truly offended and upset and mad about the actions made by Justin Tucker, you can't make jokes about it and make light of it if you are seriously upset for the victims of his actions. The two just, I don't think, can correlate. I don't think they can coexist. So if you want to make jokes about it, by all means, feel free to do so. America is the funniest country in the world. Our Twitter, our social media is just filled with hilarious content day after day. But you also can't turn around and be like, how dare he? Wait a minute. A moment ago, you were making a tweet about how Justin Tucker and Deshaun Watson are like Shaq and Kobe hand in hand in this. And now all of a sudden you're really upset about what Justin Tucker did? No, it's one or the other. I don't think you can have it both ways. So I'm okay with the let's have some jokes with this because, let's be honest, if we're being real here, that's what everyone does. we can put on this facade when we're talking about it in a serious manner of how dare he. And I'm not saying that his actions are good or anything like that, but people love to make jokes when they're talking about this with their friends. And when you get online, sometimes you feel the need to put on a face of this is not a joking matter. But when you're talking about it with your buddies, all you're doing is ripping jokes and making fun of Justin Tucker in that same light. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the whole situation. Now, my question that I want to bring up, and this is what I included in the headline and the title of the video, is John Harbaugh and DeCosta going to go down with Justin Tucker? No one's really talking about this, and maybe I'm ahead of my skis here, and this is too big of a leap. But on the other hand, this appears to be a situation that the Ravens had some knowledge about. Benjamin Albright, who I think is a really well tapped in NFL reporter, he works in Denver, he covers the Broncos, but he's also very well versed across the NFL. He said that you can't claim you didn't know until recently if multiple women contacted your organization prior to 2018. So if Albright's correct, and listen, I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, and he did not get the Deshaun Watson stuff right when it came to Watson picking Cleveland, but he's got a very good batting average. I'm going to choose to believe him on this one here. Seems like the Ravens knew about this and opted to do nothing about it because Tucker was the best kicker in NFL history. Now, if you're wondering, wait a minute, Petey, how are the Ravens going to get in trouble for this when nothing happened to the Texans, right? The coach and the GM weren't fired when Deshaun Watson's allegations came out, and the Texans were having masseuse sign NDAs to help Deshaun Watson continue with his activities. I don't think it's an apples to apples situation, but I also don't think it's like an apples to oranges. It's probably like an orange to tangerine situation here. So we can look at the timeline for what happened in Houston, because I do think the timeline in Houston is very different than the timeline we are eventually going to learn about in Baltimore. For starters, if you're asking why didn't the Texans have their coach and GM fired when the allegations came out for Watson, who are they going to fire? They already fired their head coach and GM. They had hired their new GM and their new head coach 2 months before the allegations emerged regarding Deshaun Watson in March of 2021. Those guys had no knowledge, or if they did have any knowledge, they were learning about it hours or days before the rest of the public did, right? They weren't the ones potentially covering anything up for Watson. That would be more of Bill O'Brien, who was long gone at this point. Then in April of 2021, Roger Goodell chimes in and talks about how this could be a violation of the personal conduct policy. Now, the reason why the Browns were able to trade for and not get in trouble for what Deshaun Watson allegedly did, and it's still allegedly, but I think we all can make our own decisions at this point, is because Watson ruled or cleared by a grand jury in March of 2022, and a week and a half later, he was traded to the Browns. So in the eyes of the law, Deshaun Watson didn't do anything wrong. But I don't think this is something that's identical to the situation in Baltimore. Because for the Ravens, it appears that, if we're going off of what Albright said, they knew what Justin Tucker did and did not take any action to prevent it or report it. And they're still in charge. If Bill O'Brien was still in charge in Houston and knew about it and didn't do anything about it, I think he could have lost his job over it. This is something we see more often in like college football. But I'm also wondering, is the hammer going to come down for the Ravens? Because the NFL does have this unwritten policy of fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Meaning if an incident happens the first time, it's not going to result in a severe punishment. But if another player makes the same mistake or makes the same, crime, now the NFL has to show the world we're taking this seriously. First-time offenders or first person to dip their toe in that pond, we're going to take it a little lightly. But second time it happens, well, now everyone's wondering if we have this epidemic, and we got to bring the hammer down to show everyone, no, we take this issue seriously, and this is not going to snowball into all these players are going to masseuses. So I wouldn't rule out that just based on the order that it happened, if it was Justin Tucker first and Deshaun Watson second, the punishment may have been much more severe for Watson. Now I'm starting to think, again, this is just my own personal thinking. Does the NFL need to really come down and bring the hammer on the Ravens to show we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior because it's starting to become a pattern? So that's the question I'm kind of wrestling with right now. Now, next up on the show, I want to just switch gears completely and talk about a different AFC North team, the Cincinnati Bengals, because they may not be getting the news they were hoping for. But first things first, I do want to give a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. When you toggle this feature, it'll show you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. So do yourself a favor right now and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video, so go check out a Cavs game or any other sporting event in your area thanks to Game Time. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's switch gears and talk about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for the Bengals, because free agency is a little over a month away, and ESPN put out a really informative article of what they think is going to happen with players who are either entering free agency or are due for a contract extension. And here's what they said for Jamar Chase. The Bengals have a long-held policy of refusing to guarantee any money beyond the signing bonus in long-term veteran contracts, other than Joe Burrow's deal. And if Chase demands they make an exception for him, this could drag out for a while. Here's the contract projection that ESPN put out. 5 years, $180 million. That's an average of $36 million a season. That makes him the highest paid receiver in football, the highest paid non-quarterback in football, topping Justin Jefferson, and guaranteeing $70 million. Ultimately, I believe in my heart that this is going to get done. The Bengals are not going to lose Jamar Chase, but this could get a little ugly. And this could be a problem for them in the future with the way they handle contract negotiations for clear star players that are no-brainers for what they are worth, what you are paying, and the way you go about it. And I wonder if in the future they find themselves in tough spots when trying to sign free agents in free agency or retain some of their players, because the Bengals simply they don't really have the cash to give out boatload of guaranteed money. I know this sounds like a hater, but they've given out cash the last couple of years, but guaranteed money, you've got to have that money set aside within a certain time period so that if the owner goes under, the player still gets all their money. They don't have this business that they're running in Cincinnati. It's not like Haslam, right, with Pilot Flying J or any of the other rich NFL owners who have these separate ventures that are funding their NFL team. The Bengals are the Bengals. Like, that's the business. And it's not a booming business to the point of we can give out all these guaranteed contracts and still be greedy. Owners love to be greedy. Now, some owners can be greedy and still give out big contracts by finding other ways to be greedy, right? Maybe it's, hey, we're not going to improve the locker rooms this offseason, things like that. Bengals are, I wouldn't say struggling to get by, but I think you'd be surprised how many pro sports teams don't turn as big of a profit as you might think. Like a lot of NBA teams, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am wrong. They don't turn a profit every year. For what they're spending, dollars going out versus dollars coming in, they are reliant on TV contracts and things like that. So from actual like concessions and jersey sales, they're not this cash cow that we like to think they are, given how expensive things are, because it's got to pay for a lot of things like contracts and salaries and whatnot. But I think Chase is going to get it done. Like, they're going to find a way. They're not going to lose him, but I do think there could be some long-term, ramifications once again for the Bengals for the way they operate when extending and negotiating with a star wide receiver that any other team would get this done before he even enters the final year of his rookie contract. Another receiver that is in a little bit of a sticky situation with the Bengals, T. Higgins. He was also brought up in this ESPN article, and unlike Chase, it does not appear that Higgins is coming back to the Bengals. I have not thought that he would be able to return. They could franchise tag him yet again, but keep in mind a franchise tag is a fully guaranteed contract, and it's north of $20 million. They may not want to spend $45-ish million in 2 seasons for a guy who played 12 games last year. So here's the projection that ESPN cooked up for T. 4 years, $114 million. That's an average of $28.5 million. That makes him like the 7th highest paid receiver in football. This is in the Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith territory, guaranteeing $70 million. You're telling me T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are going to get $70 million guaranteed each, but one's going to get about $50 million more in total money? I'm not trying to just piss off Bengals fans when I say they just don't really have the cash to give out all this guaranteed money. And it's reflected in the percentage of the contract that's guaranteed for T. Higgins versus Jamar Chase. Now, the Bengals can put a lot of money in the signing bonus for Jamar Chase, but players want the guaranteed. Like, take Brandon Ayuk, for example. Everyone thought, and somewhat understandably so, he was being a little bit of a prima donna with the demands for a new contract going into this season and the money he was asking for. And then he tears his ACL a few weeks into the season, and if he didn't get that extension before the season began, no shot he is getting the same amount of money this upcoming offseason. Not a good time for Bengals fans when it comes to, hey, we have a really good team, and we have to pay them like that. And that's never the way we've operated before. But with salary cap booming, I mean, the NFL is making money hand over fist. They just discovered this untapped reservoir of oil, which is streaming. They're selling games to Netflix, to Amazon Prime, and all the money they make, like, I think Netflix paid $100 million? Someone fact check me, please. $100 million to the NFL. The NFL just takes $100 million, divide by 32, and that gets just separated across all 32 teams. And then when the teams report how much they made at the end of the season, the NFLPA goes, all right, you made that much? Well, then it's fair that the salary cap goes up this much because you're making more money to pay us. And the Bengals, I don't think, really like that. Also, when it comes to T. Higgins, I'll just wrap up with this. I know some Browns fans really want to sign him, and don't get me wrong, he is a good receiver. I do think the availability the last 2 seasons is concerning. 2 straight years where he's missed a total of 10 games. In free agency, one of the biggest questions you have to ask yourself is, before we pay this guy, are we going to see this guy? And I think the last 2 years, they are a little bit of a concern for me. So, while I wouldn't be upset if the Browns signed T. Higgins, which I don't expect them to, I do think that's a fair point to at least bring up in conversations. Before we sign off, how about this to end the show? Who do you think is going to win the AFC North? Browns, Bengals, Steelers, or Ravens? History says it can't be the Ravens. No one wins it 3 times in a row. So, you're down to a 1-in-3 chance. Not bad odds right there. One more thing before we get on out of here, by the way. If you have not followed me on social media, please do so. Hit me up on Twitter/X, Matthew Petey. Also, we're on Instagram, Browns Reports IG. So, let's pick a card. Mr. Reed. There's a lot of construction going on, so we're in a studio that does not have a mic for Reed, so just yell it to me. King of Clubs, not the King of Clubs conversation again. I'm going to go with I was going to say 6 of diamonds, but I know it won't be that. The odds are against me. So don't do King of Clubs. Jack of Clubs. Your odds just went up. I'm not going to do 6 of diamonds. I'm going to do 5 of diamonds. Math. Would you say Jack of Clubs? Yeah, 7 of clubs. But it's a good thing we didn't stick with our first guess. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. I will see everyone later.